This week we're going to modify these kids chairs we picked up recently. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take these into the shop and we're going to cut holes and we get these terracotta pots installed and we're going to make something pretty cool. So what I'm going to use to cut these, I was hoping to be able to use some of the big circle cutting bits, but it's a bit too big. The hole we need is 7 3/4. I'm going to use this circle cutting tool I got from my router. It lets you cut circles anywhere from 1 inch all the way up to like 50 something inches, so it's great for making tables. So the way this router hole cutting thing works, once you've set the measurement for the size of hole you're looking for, you need to drill a small hole in the center of what's going to be the hole, and then you attach this into that hole, and then you start slowly turning your router around. Because obviously it's quite a large thing, it means we're going to have to take the seat off. And because this is curved, it's probably going to be safer to cut it from the bottom, which is flat. So let's go ahead and take the seat off this chair. And it's naturally flat heads because this is old. It's always best with old stuff to make sure the same screws go back in the same holes. So I'm just going to keep the chair part upside down once the seat is removed, and that way I don't have to mess around labeling any screws. It's a nice traditionally built chair, mortise and tenon joints, and then recessed screws for the seat. It's probably the same type we'll style it. School, Sunday school, something like that. No, it doesn't look like there's any glue in there. This chair is in really good shape considering it's probably 60 to 70 years old. The other one's going to have a little bit of repair, but it's minimal. It's going to sit our pot like that. It's good to just double check it's not going to be in the frame. You can obviously see where the marks are, so that's pretty easy. So this router guide comes with a 1/8 drill bit, and that matches the supplied screw. So I'm just going to drill the center mark that I've already found. Okay, now we can set up our device. We've got our size of our hole is going to be 7 3/4. So I line up the hole in the guide with the hole we just drilled, and then we put this in. Very important to do this with just a screwdriver. You don't want to over tighten it, because if you strip that hole out, it's kind of a bit of a problem. And then we just want this so that there's no movement front to back in the guide, but not so it's tight. Because obviously we're going to be cutting in a circular motion, and that will move freely. Looks like I'm going to have to knock down just the screw hill so I can move smoothly. So okay, that'll let me move smoothly around there. And then the actual body here just slides in. This works best with a plunge router, but I don't want to take the time to take my plunge router out of my router table. So I just use an old trim router. It's maybe a little underpowered, but just small, steady cuts and it gets there. So just turn it around so that it locks. And all the tool does is it keeps the router in position. So I'm going to just gradually take little bites out of this and we'll get through it. I'm going to go ahead and throw this up on some scrap 2x4s, just because when it's done I don't want to cut through my table. Because it may be OSB, but it's the best table I've got out here right now. Because this is such a small seat, the tricky thing is going to be getting some clamping on it. But because I don't want to get my plunge router out of the table, what I'll end up doing is I'll just gradually lower this about maybe 1/8 of an inch at a time, and then I'll just make my cuts getting deeper as I go. Once I complete a circle, I'll just go a little bit deeper and then just keep working down. It's probably take about 20 minutes to cut through it, but it's going to leave a perfect circle. Temptation's not to clamp it, but I know better. So I'm going to have 2 clamping points. I'm going to clamp on this side, and then I'm going to move my clamp to the other side when I get close to this clamp. It's going to make this take a lot longer, but doing it without clamps is just a recipe for disaster. When using one of these, we're going to be cutting a lot of material into sawdust, so You got a nice filthy mess there, but it keeps my lungs clean. So that's our end result. It's always going to be a little funny right at the edge, but it's only a small amount of clean up. Just a little bit of sandpaper should take that down. Looks like our size is going to be spot on once we get the cleanup done. So we'll go ahead and clean it up and install this back on the chair. Just 80 grit. Just a quick way to knock down material. So we're actually going to leave this off. It's going to be easy for Rhea to paint it without the pieces together. So I'm going to go ahead and just label up some of these pieces, and then I'll go ahead and get the second one cut and we can get on to some painting, which we made into a companion video that you can watch now.